Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. We're taking a look at Soul in the Driver's Seat,
Okay.
specifically Chapter 7,
Right.
which focuses on this idea of role-playing.
Interesting.
Have you had a chance to take a look at this one yet?
I have, and it's a fascinating chapter. It really digs into this idea that we're all kind of like actors on a stage,
Right.
playing these different roles in our lives.
So when you say role-playing, is it like literally, putting on a different mask every day?
Well, it's not just about, like a physical mask or pretending to be someone we're not.
Okay.
It's more about the characters we create and inhabit,
Yeah.
in our daily lives.
Right.
These roles become so ingrained in how we interact with the world, and ultimately, the book argues that they hold us back from really connecting with others authentically.
So it's not just about, kind of faking it till you make it, but it's like these roles become so ingrained that they actually define our interactions and our relationships with other people.
That's exactly right. And it's not always a conscious choice either.
Right.
We often slip into these roles without even realizing it. Think about all the common roles that people kind of fall into, like the high achiever or the peacemaker or the rebel. The book argues that, these roles often stem from some kind of ego-driven need,
Oh, interesting.
like a desire to feel special or in control or, whatever it might be. Actually, there's a really great quote in the book that kind of illustrates this point. It says, human relationships are so fragile, ego-dominant individuals depend on others they are in relationship with to play their roles to hold the relationship in place.
Wow. That's pretty powerful.
It is.
And a little bit scary when you think about it, in terms of just how fragile our relationships can be if we're so dependent on others, playing their assigned roles.
It is.
Yeah, so I'm curious, when we talk about these roles, are you saying that all roles are inherently bad?
Well, that's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's something the book addresses. It encourages this kind of nuanced understanding of role-playing.
Okay.
It's not about, labeling all roles as good or bad.
Right.
It's more about examining the motivation behind the role.
Oh, interesting.
So for example, let's say someone, naturally enjoys helping others, and they often fall into the role of like the Good Samaritan.
Right.
Is that necessarily harmful? It really depends on why they're doing it. Are they helping others out of genuine compassion
Yeah.
and this desire to contribute?
Right.
Or are they seeking validation and praise?
Ooh, that's a good point.
It can be tricky to tease those two things apart.
Yeah.
But the book does provide some insightful guidance for self-reflection.
I see what you mean. So it sounds like what you're saying is that the book is suggesting there's a difference between roles that feed our egos
Exactly.
and those that stem from a deeper, more authentic place
Yes.
within ourselves.
And the book introduces this idea of being soul dominant as opposed to ego dominant.
Interesting.
So it argues that, soul dominant individuals don't operate from these external ego-driven roles.
Right.
They're more focused on service, authenticity, living in alignment with their true selves.
So it almost sounds like a superhero origin story, shedding the ego-driven roles to embrace this soul-driven way of being.
Yeah, I got.
But, I'm curious, how can someone even begin to identify these soul-dominant people in their own lives?
Well, the book highlights some key characteristics.
Okay.
Soul-dominant individuals tend to be compassionate, authentic.
Right.
They're less concerned with power dynamics or needing to be right.
Interesting.
Their actions are guided by a deeper sense of purpose. And they don't get caught up in the same ego-driven games that many of us do. They often radiate a certain calmness and inner peace that's palpable to those around them.
So it's almost like they have this sort of aura about them
Yeah, you could say that.
that you can just sense when you're in their presence.
Exactly.
So if we're surrounded by all these people playing roles,
Right.
including ourselves,
Right.
how do we even begin to shift towards this more soul-driven way of being?
Yeah.
It feels a bit overwhelming just thinking about it.
It is a journey. It's not a quick fix.
Right.
But the book provides some practical tools and exercises to guide us.
Okay, good.
And one of the things I found really intriguing was this emphasis on keeping it real.
Oh, I like that.
It's a phrase that's gained a lot of traction in recent years.
Yeah.
And the book suggests it's a sign that people are craving more authenticity
Right.
in a world that often feels very staged and performative.
That really resonates with me. There's definitely this sense that people are tired of the masks and the pretense. They're yearning for genuine connection and deeper meaning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the book suggests that, this desire for authenticity
Right.
is a natural impulse of the soul,
Interesting.
trying to break free from the confines of the ego.
So how does the book suggest we move from this ego-driven acting to a more soul-driven way of being? Are there like practical steps that people can take?
Well, the month of April in the book focuses on reflective exercises
Okay.
designed to help readers examine their own role-playing habits.
Okay.
And these exercises offer a great starting point
Right.
for those looking to kind of make a shift.
So give us an example of one of those exercises.
Sure. One of the exercises asks, what has been the hardest element about the roles you have played in this current lifetime?
Wow.
It's a powerful question
It is.
that really encourages introspection and self-awareness. Another one asks, if souls do not play roles but serve a function, who in your current lifetime do you feel is operating with a dominant soul?
That's a good one.
So these questions invite readers to consider their own behavior and, those around them in a new light.
Yeah, I can see how these exercises are designed to make us stop and really think about how we're showing up in the world.
Exactly.
Mhm.
The book emphasizes that awareness is the first step in any transformational process. You can't change what you don't acknowledge.
That's true.
Right. By becoming more conscious of our role-playing habits,
Right.
we can start to make different choices.
So let's say someone's listening to this deep dive and they're intrigued by these ideas, but they haven't read the book. What's a simple first step they could take to start shifting away from that ego-driven role-playing?
I think a great place to start is with simple self-observation.
Okay.
Notice when you're slipping into a familiar role and ask yourself, is this serving me or is it feeding my ego?
Oh,
That simple question
yeah.
can be surprisingly powerful, right, in helping you make more conscious choices.
That's a really accessible starting point.
Yeah.
It's not about suddenly becoming like a completely different person,
Yeah.
but rather about becoming more aware of our patterns and making small shifts in our behavior.
You got it. It's a gradual process of unfolding layer by layer.
Right.
And the book emphasizes that it's not about perfection, it's about progress.
That's a good point.
Right. Every small step we take towards authenticity is a victory.
Sounds like the book offers a really hopeful message that we're not stuck in these roles forever.
Exactly.
We have the power to choose a different path,
Yes,
one that's more aligned with our true selves.
absolutely. And the book suggests that as we make this shift, our relationships will transform as well.
Oh, interesting.
They'll become more authentic, more compassionate, and more rooted in genuine connection.
That's really encouraging. I'm already feeling inspired to take a closer look at the roles I play in my own life.
That's great. I think that's the beauty of this book. It challenges us to question our assumptions and to look at ourselves and our relationships with fresh eyes.
Right.
It's an invitation to embark on this journey of self-discovery
Yeah.
and to embrace the possibility of living a more authentic and fulfilling life.
Well, this is all fascinating. I definitely want to keep unpacking some of these ideas.
One of the things that really struck me about the book is how it kind of reframes our understanding of relationships.
Oh, interesting.
Well, it suggests that, when we're so caught up in these ego-driven roles,
Right.
our relationships have become very transactional.
Okay.
It's like we're more focused on maintaining a certain image
Right.
dynamic rather than really fostering genuine connection. And the book even asks the reader directly, are you willing to risk having your relationships change if you move away from role-playing?
It's like we're more concerned with playing our parts correctly
Exactly.
than with truly connecting with the other person. That makes me think of, those couples who seem perfect on the surface, but then behind closed doors,
Right.
they're just going through the motions, living out these pre-scripted roles.
Yeah, that's a great example. And the book suggests that, true intimacy can only occur when we're willing to shed those roles
Right.
and allow ourselves to be seen for who we truly are, imperfections and all. It's about moving away from judgment
Right.
and embracing acceptance both of ourselves and others.
That sounds both liberating and terrifying.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable and to accept the vulnerability of others.
It does.
But the book seems to suggest that it's in that space of vulnerability
Right.
that real connection happens.
Precisely. It's about recognizing that we're all works in progress,
Yeah,
constantly evolving and growing.
right.
And when we approach relationships with that mindset, it creates this space for authenticity and genuine connection. We can let go of the need to control everything and just be present with each other.
But let's be realistic.
Yeah.
We can't just suddenly drop all the roles we play in our lives. We're parents, employees, friends. These roles come with certain responsibilities and expectations.
Yeah.
So how do we reconcile that with this idea of shedding roles
Yeah.
and embracing authenticity?
Well, the book acknowledges this complexity.
Okay.
It's not about, abandoning our responsibilities
Right.
or pretending those roles don't exist. It's more about examining how we approach those roles.
Oh, interesting.
Are we operating from a place of love and authenticity
Right.
or from a place of fear and ego?
So, for example, as a parent, it's not about neglecting your child's needs or failing to provide structure and guidance. It's more about being mindful of the why behind your actions.
Exactly.
Are you setting boundaries out of love and a desire to support your child's growth, or are you doing it to maintain control and reinforce a certain image of yourself as like the perfect parent?
That's a great way to put it. It's about being present and engaged rather than just going through the motions, fulfilling a predetermined role.
Right.
And the book suggests that, the shift in perspective can actually lead to more fulfilling relationships in all areas of our lives.
This is making me think about, those times when I've gotten caught up in playing a certain role and how it's impacted my interactions with others.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's subtle, but looking back, I can see how it's, created distance or prevented me from really connecting. It's definitely something to be mindful of.
It is. And I think the book provides a really valuable framework for understanding these dynamics. One of the key takeaways for me is this idea that true freedom comes from letting go of the need to control everything, including how others perceive us. The book asks, moving forward, can you commit to using less rigidity in your relationships?
Like we have to surrender to the present moment
Yeah.
and allow ourselves to just be,
Right.
rather than constantly striving to perform.
Yeah,
But that requires a certain level of trust,
it does.
both in ourselves and in the people that we're in relationship with.
Absolutely. And the book talks about the importance of fluidity in relationships. It encourages us to move away from these rigid expectations
Right.
and embrace a more flexible and adaptable approach.
Can you elaborate on that a bit more? What exactly does it mean to be more fluid in our relationships?
Well, it's about letting go of the need to always be right or to have the final say. It's about being open to different perspectives,
Yeah.
even if they challenge our own, deeply held beliefs.
Right.
It's about recognizing that relationships are constantly evolving.
Yeah.
And we need to be willing to adapt and change along with them. It's about letting go of this illusion of control and embracing the beautiful messiness of human connection.
It's about allowing space for growth and change,
Yes.
both within ourselves and within our relationships. I can see how that could lead to deeper, more authentic connections, but it also sounds a bit daunting.
It can be.
How do we even begin to loosen our grip on those roles and expectations without creating chaos?
Well, the book suggests starting small.
Okay.
It's about becoming more aware of those moments when you're clinging to a particular role or expectation. Maybe it's catching yourself interrupting someone because you feel the need to be the expert or the problem solver.
Right.
Maybe it's noticing the resentment you feel when someone doesn't fulfill their expected role in the relationship. These are all opportunities for growth and awareness.
So it's about paying attention to those subtle cues, both within ourselves and in our interactions with others. And then what? How do we start to shift those patterns?
It's about being more mindful and intentional in our relationships rather than just reacting out of habit or preconceived notions. It's about taking a pause before reacting, asking ourselves, what's motivating my response right now? Is it coming from a place of love or fear?
So it's about cultivating self-awareness and choosing to respond from a place of love rather than reacting from a place of fear or ego. That sounds simple in theory, but I imagine it's much harder to put into practice.
It definitely takes effort and commitment. But the book provides some helpful guidance.
Okay.
It encourages us to be honest with ourselves and with the people we're in relationship with. Maybe it's expressing your own needs and desires more clearly,
Right.
or asking the other person about their needs and expectations. It's about creating space for open and honest communication.
So it's about communication, vulnerability, and a willingness to adapt.
Yes.
It's about letting go of the need to control and embracing the uncertainty of growth and change. It's definitely a challenge, but it also sounds incredibly liberating.
It is, and the book suggests that embracing this fluidity can actually lead to deeper, more fulfilling connections.
Hmm.
When we're not so caught up in our roles, we're more open to experiencing the other person fully and authentically. We can see beyond the masks and the costumes to the heart of who they truly are.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like we're finally free to see each other beyond the roles we've been playing, beyond the expectations and the judgments. But if I'm being honest, it also sounds a little scary. What if by letting go of our roles, we lose our sense of identity within the relationship?
That's a valid concern, and it's something the book addresses directly. Letting go of roles doesn't mean losing ourselves entirely. It's more about shedding the layers that no longer serve us, the parts of ourselves that we've outgrown or that are holding us back from experiencing true connection.
It's like we're peeling back the onion,
Yeah,
revealing our true selves layer by layer. But
exactly.
it's a delicate process, and it requires a certain level of trust and courage.
It does. It's about having the courage to be vulnerable,
Right.
to step outside our comfort zones and embrace the unknown.
Right.
And the book suggests that the rewards are well worth the risk.
I'm curious to hear more about what this book suggests we do to actually make these changes. What kind of practical guidance does it offer? So we've been talking about, the challenges of letting go of these ego-driven roles and embracing a more soul-driven way of being.
Well, one of the most helpful concepts I think the book introduces is this idea of now time.
Now time.
Yeah, this idea that, the past is gone, the future's uncertain, and the only moment we truly have is the present.
Right.
And the book suggests that role playing is often rooted in the past, clinging to these old patterns and beliefs that no longer serve us.
It's like we're constantly replaying these old scripts in our heads,
Exactly.
holding on to these outdated identities.
Right.
So how does shifting our focus to the present moment, how does that help us break free from those roles?
Well, by bringing our awareness to the present moment, we can start to notice those automatic reactions and habitual patterns that stem from those old scripts.
Hmm.
The author actually writes, "Can you understand that role playing is rooted in the past and is not centered in now time, the only time there is?"
Hmm.
And this shift in awareness allows us to choose a different response, one that's more aligned with who we are now in this moment.
It's like hitting the pause button on those old tapes and
Exactly.
choosing to create a new narrative,
Right.
one that reflects our evolving selves.
Yes.
But that brings up another question. You know, if we let go of our roles, what happens to our relationships? Do they fall apart without those defined structures? The book even asks this directly. Are you willing to risk having your relationships change if you move away from role-playing?
It's a valid concern. And the book acknowledges that, some relationships might not survive this shift in perspective.
Oh, wow.
Not everyone is ready or willing to embrace this level of authenticity and vulnerability.
So it's like a process of refinement,
Yeah,
letting go of what no longer serves us to make space for something new and more fulfilling.
exactly.
But how do we navigate those potential changes in relationships without, causing unnecessary hurt or disruption?
Well, the book really emphasizes the importance of compassion and understanding both for ourselves and for others.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that everyone is on their own journey
Right.
and respecting their choices, even if they differ from our own.
So it's not about forcing our perspective on others or expecting them to change overnight.
Right.
It's about focusing on our own growth and trusting that, the right relationships will evolve alongside us.
Exactly. And the book reminds us that true love isn't about control or possession.
Right.
It's about freedom and acceptance. It's about allowing others to be who they truly are, even if it means they change and grow in ways we didn't anticipate.
It's like we're setting each other free to become the best versions of ourselves.
Yes.
And in that freedom, we find a deeper, more authentic connection.
Exactly.
This whole conversation has been incredibly eye-opening for me. It's given me a lot to reflect on in terms of how I show up in my own life and relationships.
Me too.
Well, dear listener, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the concept of role-playing, as presented in Soul in the Driver's Seat. We hope this exploration has provided some insights and inspired you to take a closer look at the roles you play in your own life. If you're intrigued by these ideas and want to delve deeper, we highly recommend checking out the book. It's filled with wisdom and practical exercises that can guide you on your journey toward greater authenticity and soul-driven living. And as you embark on this journey, we leave you with a thought-provoking question. If you could let go of one role you play in your life, which would it be, and what might that freedom look like? Until next time, keep seeking, keep growing, and keep embracing the beautiful complexity of being human.